There have been so many different kinds of them. Some of them satirical, as I've said before, and some of them questioning point of view. For instance, H.G. Wells has a story called In the Country of the Blind, the One-Eyed Man is King. And it's about a man who can see, who finds a lost civilization. They were always finding lost civilizations at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th centuries. And in this lost civilization, everybody is blind, but they get around very well at night. And he thinks it's a great opportunity for him, that he will take over these people because he can see and they can't. And he falls in love with one of the women who can't see, and they're going to get married. And she says, well, this will be very well, but first of all, we have to get rid of those ugly bumps on the front of your face. At which point he runs away very fast. There's another one by John Wyndham in which it's called Consider Her Ways. And in that one, a woman wakes up and finds herself in the future in the wrong body. It's a great big enormous huge body. And there are a lot of other women running around, little women. She's in a room with a lot of other women with great big huge bodies, and she can't imagine what has happened to her. And these little women feed her breakfast and say, you're just having a little moment, you're having a little, it's sometimes like this after you've given birth to octuplets. So she's just had 8 babies. And then she says, you know, I'm in the wrong time. I need to get back to my own time. And they say, there, have this calming drink. But she finally manages to get them to take her to somebody who can explain all this to her. And they put her on a great big cart and they wheel her through the countryside where she sees these other women who are very healthy looking and fit. And they're doing all of the cultivation of the crops. Everything is very tidy. But there aren't any men. So she finally gets to the house of a historian who says, we sometimes have this problem, you know, people from the past who turn up in the wrong bodies. But what happened was that there was a plague that wiped out all of the men. And it's true, things were quite chaotic for a while. You know, we didn't know how to change car tires or any of those things. And we had some wars, but it's all settled down now, and we've got things very well arranged. So in fact, they're like ants. The big, large women are cloning babies, all of which are female. The little ones are the nurse ants that are taking care of them. And the ones in the fields are the worker ants who are doing the physical labor. And then of course, you have to have a couple of intellectual workers so that the story will work out. And so that we can find out what happened. He says, well, I would like to get back to my own time. And the historian says, why? You know, it's so chaotic back there with all those men, you know, they're always having wars, they're, you know, being aggressive and doing all these man things. Wouldn't you rather stay here? And she says, no, I don't think so. I would miss the romance, she says. So they say, all right, drink this. Bang, she's back in her own body. She says, what a relief. However, they've told her where the laboratory was, where the plague started that wiped out all of the men. And she thinks, I have to stop this. You know, because they might think that's utopia, but I thought it was a nightmare, so let's stop this now, I'll save all the men. So she goes to the laboratory and breaks into it and sets fire to it. But unfortunately, in the fire, the rats carrying the plague escape. So there you have a utopia, a dystopia, all in one. Depends whose point of view with some of these stories.
Άρα μπορεί και η ουτοπία να περιέχει δυστοπία για κάποιους ανθρώπους ή για κάποιες καταστάσεις.
It always does. It always does. As I said, there's always a little dystopia embedded in the utopia. That is, some people don't like it. number one. Number two, in the past it was worse. So there's those two forms. And in a dystopia, there's always the idea things could be better. And also the idea, how did we get to this terrible place? It used to be better in the past. And that is the Golden Age myth that comes right from here.
Πιστεύετε ότι ποιο είναι η κατάσταση που μπορεί να δημιουργηθεί, εντάξει, εάν επικρατήσει η ουτοπία? Δηλαδή, ποια είναι η βασική δυστοπία η οποία μπορεί να προκαλέσει η ουτοπία? Για σας.
Well, let's describe the utopia that you have in mind first. Is it going to be a utopia concentrating on food distribution? Is it going to be about sexual equality? Not all of them are. Some of them are utopias for men with a lot of beautiful women in it who really like them quite a lot. Depends who's writing these things. So it's very hard to generalize.
Να πούμε σε εσάς ποια ήταν η περίπτωση που φτιάχνοντας μια ουτοπία πέσατε σε μια δυστοπία. Και δεν την είχατε πολύ σκεφτεί ότι θα οδηγηθείτε εκεί.
So are we talking about my writing or about some other writing that I might theoretically do?
Για τη γραφή.
Okay, so in The Handmaid's Tale, the situation that we find in the society is proposed by the people who did it as an improvement on the reality that they wanted to change. And they have come into it in the usual way through a chaotic social breakdown. And when there's a chaotic social breakdown, people are very motivated by fear. So anyone who can say, I can restore order, will probably win. Now that one is proposed in the United States and as an answer to the question, if you were going to create a dictatorship in the United States, what kind of a dictatorship would it be? In other words, what would be the slogan, what would be the purported ideology that allows the leaders of it to seize control? So social chaos, promise of order, I will make things better for you, I'll make things safer for women. You'll be much safer. And they are safer from one point of view. They're not wandering around on the streets anymore. They don't have jobs. They don't have to worry about getting fired. They don't have money, but they don't need money because they're all neatly arranged. So in the United States, you would not achieve power by saying, hello, my name is Bill, I'm a communist, vote for me. That wouldn't work. Nobody would do it. You might say, I'm in favor of liberal democracy, but in order to preserve this liberal democracy of which I am so fond, we have to have more order and control and surveillance, and I have to look at you through your internet connections. Now, in 1985, when I was writing The Handmaid's Tale, I wouldn't have thought that would be possible. But things have changed. So you could do that, and in fact, it's being done. But you need not fear as long as your thoughts are pure, because people will not be interested in your dentist appointments very much. Or you could say, I am restoring Christian, or indeed quasi-Christian, kind of theocracy of the type that we had in the 17th century. Because let us not forget that the United States began as a theocracy, not as a democracy. So I think the third would possibly be more likely now, combination of 2 and 3, but not the communism. That wouldn't work. So really these things are blueprint answers to questions that have ceased to become theoretical and are real questions now. They have now become much more real than they were.
Η σημερινή δημοκρατία.
So for some people, they see it as an improvement. Other people do not. And it's always like that with any rearrangement of society.
Από την πλευρά που βλέπουμε σήμερα το θέμα μας, δηλαδή από την πλευρά της δυστοπίας, θα μπορούσαμε να πούμε ότι η σημερινή δημοκρατία ή αυτό που επικαλούμε σαν δημοκρατία είναι και αυτό ένα είδος δικτατορίας, δηλαδή ένα είδος που κουβαλάει πολλές δυστοπίες.
Not quite. I think it's more like an oligarchy. So with a lot of power concentrated at the top and a lot of money concentrated at the top, but not in any flagrant way, as was true in the old French regime. People displayed their wealth too much. It made people very annoyed with them, and it also made them very visible.
Παραδέχεστε όμως ότι σήμερα υπάρχει ένας άλλος διαφορετικός τρόπος ελέγχου, οπότε ίσως και οι μεγάλες δικτατορίες να μην χρειάζεται να δηλώνουν δικτατορίες, μπορούν να δηλώνουν δημοκρατίες και να υπάρχει ο απόλυτος έλεγχος.
I don't think you have absolute control in the democracies of which we speak. If you don't want people looking at you through the internet, turn it off.
Τώρα θα ήθελα να έχετε εσείς την δυνατότητα να κάνετε το παιχνίδι με τη γλώσσα, αλλά θέλω να σας πω και κάποιος που δεν ήθελε να μείνει στην Αργεντινή έφευγε όταν ήταν ο Πινοσέτ, αλλά δεν έφευγε. Όπως κάποιος που σήμερα, ας πούμε, δεν θέλει να μπει στο ίντερνετ, θα μπορούσε να μην μπει στο ίντερνετ, αλλά δεν φεύγει από το ίντερνετ.
That's more like, yeah. Oh, you think they really can't? Well, for some reason that the Kremlin is being said to return to typewriters. And in my trilogy, of course, The God's Gardeners.
Το μόνο που θα καταφέρει είναι να ματώσει τα χέρια του.
You think typewriters are too hard for them? The thing about paper is it's quite heavy and visible. So if you want to walk out of there with a lot of documents, it would be a very big pile and somebody would see you. With microfiche, with digital information, you can put it all in a little container like that, and that is how the WikiLeaks people and Snowden and so forth have been able to do it. They couldn't have done this in an age of paper only. So there are always there's always a front door and a back door to all of these technologies. So yes, it provides more surveillance, but it also provides more leakage. We know a lot more secrets in this age than we would have known in an age that was just paper, don't you think? Because you can lock paper up. It's very hard to transport without people seeing.
Όσα περισσότερα γνωρίζουμε, τόσο περισσότερο ελεύθεροι είμαστε.
The more we know, the freer we are. No, not that either. Because you can know a lot of things, but you don't necessarily have any freedom to act. So you may know, if we still are in a situation where people can vote, they can voice some of their opinions that way, but that is going to very much depend on who it is available to vote for. So just as you can't have breakfast with every possible food in the world, but only what's on the table, you only have a choice amongst the candidates on offer.